All right, we're in conversation with Dorie Clark, author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller, The Long Game: How to Be a Long-Term Thinker in a Short-Term World. Okay, Dorie, we go back a ways. First of all, congratulations! Look at that, boom. I have the advanced, reader copy you gave me in PDF format, so I can't really show that. But here's the thing, right? You and I go way back, and what I'm thinking about is, you looking ahead to the long game. Maybe back when we met at one of the Thinkers 50 in 2017, maybe 2015, I can't remember which one. And here you are today, and you're still saying it's a short-term world. So what's so dangerous to one's thinking about a short-term world when, again, when I meet you 6 or 7 years ago, you're already thinking about the long game. So what has transpired that you're still insinuating the world's short-term thinking? What's the problem there, Dorie?
You mean so? Parsing your question, Dan, it's like the world's short term, except for me.
Yeah, figured it out. Wow.
No. I think that we all can and should be long term thinkers. And the truth is, I don't think that there's anything wrong with short term thinking, but it to me it's analogous to there's nothing wrong with working like a maniac when you need to work like a maniac. Right. The problem comes when that is literally all you ever do. We need to have different arrows in our quiver, and we need to have different tools for different possibilities. And short-term thinking is fantastic when, just for argument's sake, there's a pandemic and you have to pivot quickly and you have to change and throw out every single plan that you had and say, all right, we're going to try something different. That is great. But it's also not really a way to live permanently, because if we never make long-term plans, if we never set intentions or goals that we work toward, things will happen, but it's not entirely clear that they're the things we want to happen. So long-term thinking, I feel like, is a corrective to those things. So I try to aspire toward it. I don't always achieve it, but I work toward it. And I think that for all of us, it is a muscle that we can strengthen.
Well, it's far better than saying squirrel every 5 seconds as well, right? Which, at times you do want to look at the squirrel, but not every day. Okay, so you were in the book, you've got all kinds of tactics and techniques and strategies and helpful tips. I'd like to pick up on two of them, and they actually almost subliminally actually tie into one another. So the first one was in chapter 7, Right People, the Right Rooms. And you make mention of, I guess, our mutual love for Granovetter's paper, The Strength of Weak Ties. And in that, I can see Dorie all over the place. And here's why. Because the dinners I've been to that you've organized, the virtual events that you've organized, just to get people connecting. Like you're a master of that even before the book came out. So why is it that networking is so critical to get you to be this sort of kind of thinker? And you actually go into 3 types, right? Short-term, long-term, and what I love was infinite horizon. So tell us a little bit why weak ties or networks themselves actually help your thinking.
Well, ultimately, when it comes to changing the course of your outcomes, other people are one of the biggest factors that attribute to that. Right. If you might have a set of goals or ambitions, and that's shaped by the context around you. But if we think about what can actually transform those outcomes, when you meet somebody new, they might introduce you to ideas or information or connections or opportunities or books to read or music to listen to that never otherwise would have crossed your transom. So it opens you up to new possibilities or things that you not only weren't thinking, you didn't even know that where they were out there to be thinking about. Yeah. But additionally, of course, as Granovetter talked about, we often say, oh, well, I got that through a friend. I met my wife through a friend. I got that job through a friend. More typically, it's actually an acquaintance, meaning it's someone who is outside your circle, because when you know them a little bit, but not that well, because they are more likely to be exposed to connections and opportunities that are different than what you already know about. So there's a lot of great reasons why not only is it interesting, but it's also valuable to build connections.
Amazing. And you're so vulnerable, like you open up to certain situations that have allowed you to learn from those networks and even gain business, which was quite amazing for you to put that type of personal touch into the manuscript as well. So you can tell as a reader going through that, you're like, oh, well, Dorie's actually using not just the prophecy and the suggestions to her growth in personality or growth in kind of market share or mindset, but actually to business, which is really comforting to know that you can both grow as a person and, many of us are either entrepreneurs or wanted to grow a career. And there's a few examples in there where you said, hey, actually it's helped my bottom line, which I think sometimes people are afraid to share, that there's actually a need for a paycheck or invoices, right, in order to continue to grow. So I just love that part for you. So here's the tie-in to chapter 9, Rethink Failure. And so there's another example where through almost autobiographical, you're providing the reader with these insights to some of your failures, whether they're manuscripts, right, and so forth. And whoever the famous author was kind of interesting. But how did you, my question for you is, how did you overcome, I suppose, those failures? And how's the read? How can we understand how you went through that during the day? But then to write a book, you have to look back on your experiences, if you're following me, right? So what did you learn, and how did you get to the point of demarcation, say, actually, this is what I've learned. Here's why you need to rethink failure as a strategy to be a long-term thinker.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Well, part of what you're alluding to is in one of the chapters of The Long Game, I recount basically a kind of play-by-play of my 2019. So completely untainted by the pandemic. I had 5 stretch goals for myself, 4 of which just basically went up in flames. And, they weren't even improbable stretch goals. It wasn't like, and I'm going to, go to the moon with Elon Musk. They were things that were stretch, but they were very possible, but they just kept crumbling. And it was, at the time, of course, super frustrating that they were not working out. And it did begin to feel a little Sisyphean, that you keep trying these things and it's not working. But I think that there's a couple of things that are at play. The first one is I take great comfort in the fact that we have to recognize, and this is a point that Jeffrey Pfeffer makes in his great book, Power, that if you are actually, a good, talented person, statistically, that will play out and be recognized over time. It is completely possible that in any given situation, you might not be appreciated. Your boss might not like you. You might not, the editor might think your writing sucks, whatever it is. But if you actually are good and have talent, over time, if you give it enough at bats, statistically, it will work out and other people will see you and will recognize that. So I think that we need to just keep picking ourselves up, because we have to remember, what I need is at bats in this situation. And so 4 of the 5 things didn't work out, but the last one did. And, that was great. And it enables you to keep moving forward.
And you kind of use language like bets, right? You're kind of placing bets on yourself. And so you're also probably subliminally telling the reader, right? Don't bet on a single bet. There are more options for you, if you will, to be successful if you're aligning yourself to multiple options or ideas and kind of irons in the fire, if you will, to use that metaphor. So here's, Dorie, here's the thing where I notice in the chapter 9, the relation back to chapter 7, and Right People, Right Rooms, is that you're suggesting in order for you to be successful to also tap into that network, such that, in failure, you might have people almost helping you out along the way. So don't feel so isolated, if you will. So tell me a bit about, maybe it's just me thinking that chapter 7, and certainly the suggestion on the network part, actually finding itself in Rethink Failure, was a cool one. So how does the reader then, or how does the listener here see that linkage, if you will?
Well, I think that's a great point that you raised, Dan. And it's true, when we are failing, quote unquote, whenever, something we want to do doesn't work out, of course, it's a very dispiriting time. And at a very basic level, it's a time when you can use encouragement and support. So, friends and social networks matter a lot in that regard. But also, I am a big fan and an advocate of making sure that in addition to having people around us who are just general supporters, the kind of like extended, barbecue friends and family and whatever, that you also need to really make an effort to cultivate a robust professional community of people who are doing similar work to you. And yeah. I advise so many people, I run this online course and community called Recognized Expert. And sometimes people come in and they actually have meager connections to other practitioners before they join. And they say, well, why would I want to get to know other people who do what I do? I want to get to know clients and prospects. And on one hand, yes, I see the logic. On the other hand, you are at such a profound structural disadvantage if you do not have access to data which the buyer has access to. You need to know, what are people charging? How do they think about these things? And more important than that, we need to have a mindset that you are not competing against anyone else. You're playing your own game and you can lift each other up. And so when you have a community of people that are not just friends and supporters, that's important too, but people who A, care about you, and B, know what they're talking about when it comes to your business in your field, they can give you the proper guidance to contextualize things. When we're down, our judgment is not that great. But if you have someone that you really respect and trust, and that person can say to you, Dan, it's not that your writing is bad. That is not why you were turned down. Your writing is good. Keep going, keep doing this. This person has their own agenda, or this person's looking for something different. That doesn't mean you stop. You keep going. Then it gives you the strength to listen to that person, even when your heart might be telling you, oh man, I better quit now.
That's amazing. Excuse me, amazing strategy. The real world for me quickly is when I was writing my second book. You pass off, I would imagine, your manuscript to people. It's good authors should, right, before it goes out. I passed mine off to Roger L. Martin, compatriot of yours on the Thinkers 50. Roger, overnight reads it, comes back to me and says, this is crap. Come meet me in San Francisco and we'll figure it out. And so I had to, call the publisher and say, actually, we got to hold the press, stop the press on this one. But I respected, wow. I was
dramatic.
It could have been a colossal failure had I published it, but Roger found one of the missing pieces to my whole theorem. Anyway, long story short is I agree. If I hadn't tapped into the network, I could have made a bigger mistake than perhaps was intended.
Okay, wow. Well, I love that story, Dan. That's so on point.
Oh, totally. That's why I resonated when I got to those two chapters. Like, wait a second, this is kind of interesting for me personally. Okay, last question. We'll let you go. It says more about perhaps my psyche than it does anything. But I read books from the last chapter first, and then go to the first. So I read the coda first. In yours, and it's just a habit I've had.
You do that with mystery novels too?
Yeah, seriously, nonfiction, business management books.
And it was the professor all along with the gun in the study.
Yeah, the candlestick holder, right? Okay, so your coda was really helpful because it set a stage really for the three key pieces of independence, curiosity, and resilience. And so the question for you is, you end the book with the coda for those three. What's the significance? Is there an interplay? Is that, for the reader to say, oh, if I narrow it down to independence, curiosity, and resilience, I'm going to be well on my way, or just share with us, perhaps some insight as to why you ended the book with those wonderful three actions.
Yeah, well, thank you. So to your point, I closed the long game with a coda talking about some of the essential qualities that are necessary for being able to play the long game. And as you mentioned, it's independence, curiosity, and resilience. And ultimately, what I was looking at is, where are the places that people drop off? What are the factors that cause people to give up too soon? This is the whole reason I wrote the long game, was I wanted to try to write something that would enable good, smart people to persist longer at achieving what they want to achieve. It pains me when talented folks give up too soon on something that could be a viable idea or a concept that could really make a meaningful impact. And I understand why they might, because it can be discouraging and it can be frustrating, and things do often take longer than we want them to. But I wanted to essentially find a way to forearm people so that they would be ready and prepared and to get through that. And so when I thought about the traits that would enable someone to proceed on this journey, this parlous journey, I thought, these are the unifying traits, right? Because ultimately, if you are playing the long game, first of all, independence is crucial because you fail in the end. Even if you purportedly win, you fail in the end if you were playing someone else's game. You need to play your game so that you are achieving the goals that are meaningful to you, not what society told you should be doing, not something that you feel like you're keeping up with the Joneses, but a goal that when you achieve it, you are genuinely going to feel happy and fulfilled because it was the right one for you. And that's where independence comes in. Curiosity, of course, is crucial because we need that experimental flair. Sometimes you will discover on the journey a better way to do something. Sometimes you'll discover a better goal. Hey, why not? We don't need to be beholden to something, even a goal that we set ourselves. If something better comes along, the goal is not necessarily to achieve this precise thing that we said we were going to achieve. The goal is to have a good life. And so curiosity enables us to take a pulse and follow our interests so that we can create something meaningful. And then resilience, of course, I think comes into play because just so many times, if a goal is meaningful enough and long-term enough, almost inevitably, somewhere between here and there, any goal that is more than like 5 minutes, right? It's like, oh, there's some steps in between here and there. So if you think about something where it's a 10-year goal, there are going to be things that play out differently than you imagined. And there are probably going to be unexpected gatekeepers. I'll give you one example. Right now, I'm trying to pursue Italian citizenship, which I qualify for. But one of the hassles, I've literally been working on this, Dan, for 10 years. This has been a 10-year goal. So I was so close to having all the paperwork set. There was one piece that I needed to have corrected because old-timey people were not so much with the record keeping. They just kind of wrote stuff down, like, I don't care. And then they wrote it down and it's not right. And so I had the correct documents, and I thought by providing the correct documents, I could get the incorrect documents corrected. No, apparently not. I thought I was at the finish line. Literally, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is forcing me to file a lawsuit to get my great grandfather's marriage certificate from 1910 amended. So that is what I am having to do. This costs much more money and is taking much more time than I imagined. But, I'm plowing forward. I'm going to get it done. But life is like that. And our professional arc is like that too. So we just need to be resilient.
Wow. Well, first of all, I don't know how you chisel stone away to amend that particular document, but congratulations on that. And you'll persevere because you're full of that resilience. Dorie, you're obviously a friend first, but a huge congratulations on the long game. I found your both humility and vulnerability going through, the tactics of that kind of long-term thinking in a short-term world mantra. I thought it was exquisite. And so big hat tip to you. And, let's hope that it stays on WSJ for the next 3 years so others can learn from that as well. Dorie, congrats. Thanks again.
Thank you, my man. Good to see you, Dan.